Westcar Papyrus story of the turquoise pendant. Then Papyrus stood up to speak, and said, I will let your majesty hear a wonder which happened in the time of your forefather Sneferu, justified, and is something that the chief lector priest Jajimak did. Then he told the story of the green jewel. Things have not happened. Sneferu went through every room of the palace to seek distraction for himself, but he couldn't find any. That he said, Go and bring me the chief lector priest and book scribe Jajimak, and he was brought to him immediately. Then his majesty said to him, I have gone through every room of the palace to find distraction for myself, but I couldn't find any. Then Jajimak said to him, Oh, may your majesty go to the lake of the palace, and man a ship with all beautiful women from inside your palace. The heart of your majesty will be cheered by seeing them row a trip back and forth, and seeing the beautiful reeds of your lake, and seeing its beautiful fields and water banks. Your heart will be gladdened by this, so I will arrange a rowing trip. Let there be brought to me 20 oars of ebony plated with gold, their handles of sandalwood plated with electrum. Let there be brought to me 20 women with beautiful bodies, well-developed breasts, who have braided, and who have not yet given birth. And let me be brought to me 20 nets, and give these nets to these women after their clothes have been taken off. All was done as his majesty commanded. Then they rowed back and forth, and the heart of his majesty was gladdened by seeing them row. Then one woman who was at the stroke oar got entangled in her braids, and a fish pendant of real turquoise fell in the water. Then she became still, without rowing, and her side became still, without rowing, and his majesty said, Can you not row? And they said, Our stroke has become still without rowing, and his majesty said to her, Why are you not rowing? And she said, This fish pendant of real turquoise has fallen into the water. Then he said to her, It shall be replaced. And she said to him, Prefer the real one to a substitute. And then his majesty said, Go and bring me the chief lector priest Jajimak, and he was brought immediately. Then his majesty said, Jajimak, my brother, I have done what you said. The heart of his majesty was gladdened by seeing them row. Then a fish pendant of real turquoise on one of the strokes fell into the water, and she became still without rowing. It so happened that she disrupted her side, and I said to her, Why are you not rowing? And she said to me, The fish pendant that was real turquoise has fallen into the water. And I said to her, Row. Lo, I myself will replace it. And she said to me, I prefer my own thing to its substitute. Then the chief lector priest Jajimak spoke a spell, and put one side of the water of the lake on top of the other, and found the fish pendant lying on a shard. He fetched it and gave it to its owner. Now the water was 12 cubits in the middle, and it ended up being 24 cubits after being folded up. Then he spoke a spell, and the parts of the water of the lake returned to their positions. His majesty spent a day of celebration with the entire royal household, and at the end he rewarded the chief lector priest Jajimak with every good thing. Behold the wonder that happened in the time of your forefather, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt Sneferu, which is something the chief lector priest and book scribe Jajimak did. Then his majesty the king of Upper and Lower Egypt Khufu said, Let an offering be made of 1,000 loaves of bread, 100 jars of beer, 1 ox, and 2 bowls of incense to the king of Upper and Lower Egypt Sneferu, justified, and let there be given 1 cake, 1 jug of beer, a large portion of meat, and 1 bowl of incense to the chief lector priest and book scribe Jajimak, as I have seen an example of his learning. One did as everything as his majesty had ordered. Westcar Papyrus story of the wax crocodile. Then King Khufu said, It is said that you know the number of chambers in the sanctuary of Thoth. Daddy answered, I beg your pardon, I do not know their number, but I know where they are kept. And his majesty said so, wherein Daddy said, There is a box of flint in a room called the inventory in Heliopolis, and it is in that box. And his majesty said, Go and bring it to me. And Dedi said, It is not I who shall bring them to you. And his majesty said, Who will bring it to me? And Dedi said, The eldest of the 3 kings who are in the womb of Red Jadet will bring it to you. Then his majesty said, I want it. These things you say. Who is this she, this Red Jadet? And Dedi said, She is the wife of a priest of Ra, Lord of Sakhbu, who is pregnant with 3 sons of Ra, Lord of Sakhbu. He has said this of them, they will perform this ministerial position, rule in the whole of this land. The eldest will become chief priest at Heliopolis. And his majesty fell into a bad mood on hearing this. Then Dedi says, What is this mood, king, my lord? Was it caused by these children I mentioned? First your son, and then his son, but then one of them. Then his majesty said, When will Red Jadet give birth? And Dedi said, On the 15th day of the 1st month of Purit, the season of growing. Then his majesty said, But that is when the sandbanks of Tufish Canal are cut off. Might I visit myself so that I could see the temple of Ra, Lord of Sakhbu? And Dedi said, Then I will let 4 cubits of water appear on the sandbanks of Tufish Canal. And his majesty proceeded to his palace. Then his majesty said, Have Dedi assigned to the palace of Prince Hordadef, and he will be provided with 1,000 loaves of bread, 100 jugs of beer, 1 ox, and 100 bunches of vegetables. And one did everything as his majesty had ordered. Westcar Papyrus story of the wax crocodile. Then Prince Kafur stood up to speak and said, I will let you majesty hear a wonder that happened in the time of your forefather, Nebkasnak justified, as he proceeded to the temple of Ta, Lord of Anktoi, Memphis. Now it was his majesty who went to, and his majesty who performed the rite of. The chief lector priest Ubaner was with him, and the wife of Ubaner, who had a chest full of clothes for him. That he came back with the maid. After days had passed after this, there was a pavilion in the garden of Ubaner. And the villager said to the wife, Is there not a pavilion in the garden of Ubaner? Let us spend some time in it. The wife sent a message to the caretaker in charge of the garden to say, Let the garden be prepared, and she spent the day there drinking with the villager. After the evening he came out and he went to the pool. The maid told the caretaker of Ubaner. When the next day dawned, the caretaker went to tell his master of this matter. He gave it to his lord. The Ubaner said, Bring me my box of ebony and electrum, and he formed a crocodile out of wax. That he read out a spell, He comes to wash in my pool the villager. He said to the caretaker, As soon as the villager has gone into the pool, as is his daily custom, then you will throw this crocodile in after him. The caretaker then went and took the crocodile of wax with him. Then the wife sent a message to the caretaker in charge of the garden to say, Let the pavilion that is in the garden be prepared, as I am coming to sit in it. And the pavilion was prepared with every good thing, and they went, and she spent a happy day there with the villager. After it was evening, the villager came out as was his daily custom. Then the caretaker threw the crocodile of wax into the water after him, and it became a crocodile of 7 cubits, and it seized the villager. Now, Ubaner was to stay with his majesty Nebka, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, for 7 days while the villager was. After 7 days had passed, the king of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, the justified, proceeded. Then the chief lector priest Ubaner placed himself before his majesty, and Ubaner said, Told to me, May you see the wonder that has happened in the time of your majesty. A villager said, Ubaner. The Ubaner summoned the crocodile to say, Bring the villager, and the crocodile came out of the water. Then the chief lector priest Ubaner said, Drop him, and he dropped him, and he placed him on the ground. Then the majesty king of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, justified, said, Perhaps it is a crocodile. The Ubaner bent down and picked it up, and in his hand it was a crocodile of wax. Then the chief lector priest Ubainer recounted the thing that the villager had been doing in his house with his wife to His Majesty the King of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, the Justified, and His Majesty said to the crocodile, "Take what is yours." The crocodile then went down to the edge of the pool, and the place where it went with him never became known. Then His Majesty the King of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, the Justified, had his wife taken away to a plot of land to the north of the residence, and he burnt her and ordered that her body be thrown in the river. Behold the wonder that happened in the time of your forefather, the King of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, which is something the chief lector priest Ubainer did. Then His Majesty the King of Upper and Lower Egypt Khufu said, "Let an offering be made of 1,000 loaves of bread, 100 jars of beer, 1 ox and 2 bowls of incense to the King of Upper and Lower Egypt Nebka, Justified, and let there be given 1 cake, 1 jug of beer, a large portion of meat and 1 bowl of incense to the chief lector priest Ubainer, as I have seen an example of his learning." One did as everything as His Majesty had ordered. Westcar, Papyrus, Khufu and the magician. Then Prince Hordef-Jedef-Hor stood up to speak and said, "Deed is something known by those who have passed away. One cannot distinguish truth from lies. There is someone under your Majesty and in your own time who you do not know." His Majesty said, "What is this, Hordef, my son?" And Hordef said, "There is a commoner named Dedi, who lives in Jedsnefru. He is a villager who is 110 years old, who eats 500 loaves of bread and a shoulder of beef for meat and drinks 100 jars of beer a day. He knows how to mend a severed head. He can make a lion walk behind him with a leash on the ground. And he knows the number of chambers in the sanctuary of Thoth." Now, His Majesty King of Upper and Lower Egypt Khufu, Justified, spent the day seeking for himself the chambers of the sanctuary of Thoth in order to make something similar for himself for his horizon pyramid. His Majesty said, "You yourself, Hordef my son, shall bring this man to me." Then boats were prepared for Prince Hordef, and he went southward to Jedsnefru. After the boats had been moored to the river bank, he traveled over land seated in a litter of ebony with poles of sandalwood plated with gold. When he reached Dedi, his litter was set down and he stood to greet him. He found him lying on a mat at the threshold of his, as a servant at his head anointed him and another rubbed his feet. Then Prince Hordef said, "Your condition is like that of one who lives before the infirmity of old age, although old age means dying, laying to rest and burial, and who sleeps until dawn free from illness without an old age of coughing. Greeting, O blessed one. I have come to summon you by order of my father Khufu, Justified. You will eat delicacies provided by the king, the food of his companions. He will lead you through a good lifetime and to your ancestors who are in the necropolis." And to this Dedi said, "Welcome, welcome Hordef, Prince who is beloved of his father. May your father Khufu, Justified, favor you. May he advance your position amongst the elders. May your spirit contend with your enemy, and may your soul know the road that leads to the gate of him who shelters the dead. Greeting, O Prince." Then Prince Hordef held out his arms to him and raised him up. He proceeded with him to the river bank, giving him his arm. Dedi then said, "Let me be given one of the barges so that it may carry for me my children and my books." Then 2 boats were made available to him together with their crew, and Dedi came northward in the boat in which Prince Hordef was. After he had reached the royal residence, Prince Hordef entered to report to His Majesty King of Upper and Lower Egypt Khufu, Justified. Prince Hordef said, "King, my lord, I have brought Dedi," and His Majesty said, "Go and bring him to me." His Majesty then proceeded to the audience hall of the palace, and Dedi was ushered in. Then His Majesty said, "Why is it, Dedi, that I have not seen you before?" And Dedi said, "He who is summoned comes," answered the old man. "Summon me, and, look, I have come." Then His Majesty said, "Is it true that you know how to mend a severed head?" And Dedi said, "Yes, I know how to, King, my lord." Then His Majesty said, "Let a prisoner be brought forth who is in prison, and let his sentence be executed." Whereupon Dedi said, "But not to a human. Doing something like that to the noble flock is not ordained." Then a duck was brought forth, and its head was cut off. The duck was placed on the west side of the audience hall, and its head on the east side. Dedi spoke magic spell, and the duck stood up, waddling, and its head likewise. Once the head had reached the body, the duck stood up cackling. Then His Majesty had a goose brought to him, and same was done with it. His Majesty then had a bull to be brought to him, and its head was cut off. Then Dedi said his magic spell, and the bull stood up behind him, its leash having fallen on the ground. Westcar Papyrus, the birth of the three pharaohs. One of those days Rudjadet was suffering while her labor was difficult. Then the Majesty of Ra, Lord of Sakhbu, said to Isis, Nephthys, Meskhnet, Hukt and Khnum, "O may you go and deliver Rudjadet of the three children that are in her womb who will perform this magisterial office throughout this whole land, for they will build your temples, provision your altars, make your libation vessels abundant, and increase your divine offerings." Then these gods proceeded after they had changed their appearance into that of musicians. And Khnum was with them carrying luggage. Then they arrived at the house of Rusar and found him standing with his kilt upside down. And they presented him with Menets and Sistra. He then said to them, "My ladies, look, there is a woman who is suffering, for her labor is difficult." And then they said, "Let us see her, for we are knowledgeable about childbirth." And he said to them, "Come in." Then they entered towards Rudjadet, and they locked the room with her and them in it. Then Isis placed herself before her, Nephthys was behind her, and Hukt was hastening the birth. The Isis said, "May you not be powerful in her womb. In this name of yours use Refusarkif." And this baby rushed into her arms, a child of 1 cubit. His bones were strong, and his limbs destined to be of gold, and his head cloth of real lapis lazuli. And they washed him after his umbilical cord had been cut, and they placed him on a couch of brick. Then Meskhnet approached him and said, "A king who will perform kinship in this entire land." And Khnum made his body healthy. Then Isis placed herself before her, Nephthys was behind her, and Hukt was hastening the birth. The Isis said, "May you not kick in her womb. In this name of yours Sahur." And this baby rushed into her arms, a child of 1 cubit. His bones were strong, and his limbs destined to be of gold, and his head cloth of real lapis lazuli. And they washed him after his umbilical cord had been cut, and they placed him on a couch of brick. Then Meskhnet approached him and said, "A king who will perform kinship in this entire land." And Khnum made his body healthy. Then Isis placed herself before her, Nephthys was behind her, and Hukt was hastening the birth. The Isis said, "May you not stay dark in her womb. In this name of yours Kikunifrarakakai." And this baby rushed into her arms, a child of 1 cubit. His bones were strong, and his limbs destined to be of gold, and his head cloth of real lapis lazuli. And they washed him after his umbilical cord had been cut, and they placed him on a couch of brick. Then Meskhnet approached him and said, "A king who will perform kinship in this entire land." And Khnum made his body healthy. These gods then went out, having delivered Rudjadet of 3 children, and they said, "Rejoice, Rusar, for 3 children have been born to you." Then he said to them, "My ladies, what can I do for you? Please give this barley to your bearer and accept it as a gift." Then Khnum loaded himself with the barley, and they proceeded to where they had come from. Then Isis said to these gods, "What is it that we have come for, if not to perform a wonder for these children, that we may report to their father who let us come?" Then they created 3 lordly crowns, and they put them in the barley. Then they made the sky turn into storm and rain, and they returned to the house. They said, "Please put the barley here in a sealed room until we return from making music in the north," and they put the barley in a sealed room. Then Red Jadet became pure in a purification of 14 days. Then she said to her maid, "Has the house been prepared?" And she said, "The house has been prepared with every good thing except the jars which have not been brought." The Red Jadet said, "Why have the jars not been brought?" And the maid said, "There is nothing to fill them here except the barley of the musicians which is in a room under their seal." Then Red Jadet said, "Go down and fetch it from there, and Roycer will give them compensation for it when he returns." The maid went and opened the room, and she heard the noise of singing, music, dancing, cheering, and everything that is done for a king in the room. Then she went and told of everything that she had heard to Red Jadet, and she went to the place but couldn't find the place where it was done. Then she put her ear to the sack and found it was being done in it. Then she put the sack in a box which was put in another chest bound with leather. She put it in a room with her belongings and locked it up. Then Rosa returned, coming from the land, and she recounted what had happened to him, and he was very happy. Then they sat down for a day of celebration. Now when some days had passed after this, Red Jadet had a quarrel with the maid and had her punished with a beating. Then the maid said to the people in the household, "Is this done to me? I will go and tell this to His Majesty King of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khufu, justified." And she went and found her eldest uncle on her mother's side binding flax and yarn on the terrace. He said to her, "Where are you making off to, little girl?" And she recounted the matter to him, and her uncle said to her, "And what is to be done? Is what you do to come to me so that I may join in the betrayal?" And he took a bundle of flax to her and delivered a nasty blow to her. Then the maid went to get a cup of water for herself and was snatched by a crocodile. Her uncle went to tell this to Red Jadet and found her sitting in grief, and her mood was very bad, and he said to her, "My lady, why are you in this mood?" And she said, "It is the girl who has grown up in this house. Look, she has gone saying, 'I will go and betray,'" and then he bent his head down and said, "My lady. In fact, she came to me asking if she might go with me, and I delivered a nasty blow to her." Then she went to draw some water for herself, and a crocodile snatched her.